The PGMOL have come out and confirmed the referees got it wrong at Stamford Bridge and St James's Park on Saturday afternoon. And in fact, goals for West Ham United and Newcastle United should have stood. Now, I know what you're thinking, no sugar Sherlock. But what difference does it make? Because at the end of the day, it makes no difference whatsoever. There'll be consequences for the referee. He'll probably get dropped for a game or two. He might get demoted to the Championship for a game or two. I mean, ironically enough, he might have to miss next weekend's Premier League games, but instead of refereeing a game, he might find himself in the VAR room instead a little bit more often. But what good does that do for West Ham? Nothing. It changes nothing. It's all very well and good them coming out on a Monday afternoon and saying, oh yeah, the referee was wrong actually. That goal should have stood. That's the point of VAR. The point of introducing VAR was to stop this, to stop controversy, to reduce human error as much as possible. We've actually got more errors now than we did without VAR. We're discussing referees' decisions more than we used to before they had that TV monitor at the side of the pitch, and that is completely wrong. As I always say, it's nice to hear that the goal should have stood. It's not really, is it? In fact, it's quite insulting just to have it confirmed to you that actually, yeah, you should have had a point at Stamford Bridge on Saturday. We were robbed. It is simple as that, because I think it's fair to assume, especially given we scored in the 92nd minute, that we would have went on to get a draw from that game and we would have got a point. Now, a point in the Premier League is massive. You guys don't need me to tell you that. Come the end of the season, that could be the difference between European football, no European football. What European competition? We've seen Premier Leagues won or lost on the last day on goal difference. Teams staying up and getting relegated by a point. A point is huge. We, West Ham, last season missed out in the Europa League by 2 points. Now, I know you say, hang on, that's 2 points. But you know what my point is. Small margins, but yet can have big impacts on a team come the end of the season. It's also momentum as well. You know, had we got a point from that one, we're looking back thinking, you know what, 3 games against Villa, Tottenham and Chelsea, 3 games unbeaten, 5 points, we'll take that. We're sort of considered in form all of a sudden. Well, we're not anymore, are we? Because we've now got a defeat against our name. Now it's 1-1 drawn, 1 lost 1, which is average form. The consequences for West Ham are huge. Possibly huge. The consequences for Chelsea could be big as well, and an additional 2 points for them can make the world of difference come the end of the season. That could be the difference between them finishing 4th and 5th and then the other team missing out. Well, I don't know. As long as it's a non-Sky Sports 6 team that's 5th, Brighton, for example, manage to stay in there and lose out on the last day and Chelsea finish above them, then they can look back and grieve. Anyway, this video is a little bit of a ranty one, but it's all about VAR, and I'm interested to get your opinions as well. So get involved in the comments below. I'm going to give my thoughts on VAR, of where we're at, and possibly going forward, because I don't think there's any obvious answer, to be honest with you. So I'm interested in getting your thoughts on this topic. So very much an opinion piece today. So, like I said, when it happened, now Mendy's played a blinder. Okay, he has played an absolute, he's conned the referee here. Minimal contact, rolled around holding his shoulder. Now I still have the belief, and I'm probably giving them far too much benefit of the doubt here, the referee that is, that if Mendy loses the ball, gets up and goes after it again and tries to close down Cornet when he's picked up, and then Cornet still scores, I think it becomes easy to allow that goal to stand. VAR, as they should, take a quick look at it. 1 replay should be enough. Say, no, goal stands, he's fine. Not enough in that. Goal stands, continue. But because Mendy's laid down, rolled around, held his shoulder, broke his arm, or implied he broke his arm, I think it puts pressure on those at VAR, where they watch the first couple of replays, possibly can't see anything, then they think, well, we're going to have to keep watching this, because he's clearly injured, let's keep watching it. By the 6th, 7th replay, they're almost convincing themselves they've got to find something. And that's what it feels like with VAR as a football fan. Not a West Ham fan, a football fan watching any game at the minute. When it goes to VAR, they're looking for something. They're looking for a reason to rule this out. McAllister yesterday scored an absolute banger. Then they're looking, they're replaying. Is there an offside? Is there an offside? Well, he's offside, but is he interfering? Let's keep looking. And it feels like they're trying to rule goals out, especially, and I don't like to say this, but especially if it's against a certain 6 clubs in the Premier League, but we'll get on to that. However, like I said, Mendy has played them here. He's forced them to look at that replay numerous times. And the more you look at it, the more you convince yourself, actually, there is a foul here. Meanwhile, the referee stood there waiting, and it's a long time to wait. It might be 2 minutes, I'm not sure how long it was. Let's just say it was 2 minutes. Certainly the whole VAR incident in the Bournemouth game was 4 minutes long. But for 2 minutes he's possibly stood there. He's got Chelsea players around him, he's got West Ham players around him. But he stood there the whole time, and he must be doubting himself. He has to be. If I did something, and somebody was coming to have a quick check at it, and they were checking it for a lot longer than I would expect, while they're looking at it, I would doubt myself. I would think, I've done something wrong here. He's always having a proper look at it. What have I done wrong? Doubt sets in. Then he gets told to go to the monitor. Doubt increases, because we all know what that means. When you get sent to the monitor, that means VAR room thinks you've made an error, or you need to double check it anyway. But it basically implies you've made a mistake. So he's got to jog across that pitch and have a look at it. By the time he's got to the monitor, the referee, I'm talking general here, my overlook on VAR, not necessarily Stamford Bridge in this particular instance, but by the time they get there, they're already expecting to see an error because of what's happened prior. The environment they're now in is sort of set them up that you've made a mistake. Again, now I'm back to Stamford Bridge. You had to watch that numerous times. It wasn't 2 views and suddenly, yeah, that's enough. I made a mistake. No, he's watching it and he's watching it and he's watching it. If you have to watch something that much times, there can't be that big an error. And I think this is part of the problem that VAR plays itself over and over and over again. Is a time limit the answer to VAR, where they only get to view it 2 or 3 times, or they only get a certain amount of time to look at it, and if come the end of it they're still not sure, go with the on-field decision? I'm not sure. Partly, kinda would like to see that brought in, because I do wonder if that would eradicate some of the problems, because I do feel a large part of the problems at the minute with VAR, ironically, is taking more than a minute, too long, allowing doubt to set in. Also, and this is a problem I've got with most referees bar 2 in the Premier League, and that is when they've got a colleague in their ear, because it is a colleague in their ear suggesting they've made a mistake. That causes a problem, in my opinion. Now, there's only 2 referees at the minute from the PGMOL that are in the elite group refereeing, who are then used for UEFA matches and FIFA matches, and that is Anthony Taylor and Michael Oliver. That's the 2 referees for England at the moment. You know, we all know them in the past. Martin Atkinson's been used in the past, Howard Webb, Mark Clattenburg. So there's usually 2 a season for England that then go off to UEFA. For Scotland is Willie Collum. He's the Scottish referee that's used. So when I often talk about pecking order, I've seen some people in the comments suggest, is there a pecking order? Well, not officially, but apart from them 2, I think Oliver and Taylor, being the 2 that are used for UEFA, would suggest that they are the better referees in the Premier League. Well, they must be, otherwise they wouldn't be used. So when I heard the referee at the City Ground on Saturday had gone to VAR and stuck to his original decision, I knew, and I mean, I promise you this, you won't believe me, I knew who it would have been, the referee. I knew it would have been one of those 2, and it was Michael Oliver. He was the one that gave a decision. He gave a penalty against Bournemouth for Lloyd Kelly, sort of flung himself at a shot with his arms out, not extended, just out to the side, hit him in the arm, penalty given. VAR looked at it and said, oh, I don't know about that one, Michael, you're going to have to go have a look. He went over, didn't take long at all, looked at it a couple of times, went, no, I'm sticking with that. I've got that right. I'm sticking with a penalty. And I think it's easier for Michael Oliver and Taylor to stick to their decisions because they are the better referees. It's as simple as that as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a problem when you've got a colleague, because if you then stick to your original decision like Oliver does, he's essentially publicly saying the guy on VAR, he's wrong about this, because they only get sent to the screen when they think there's been an error. So what is the answer, I guess? Because I hate to use the word corruption. I don't like using it lightly. It's a very, very strong word, but it's very difficult to stay away from it this weekend, especially when you feel a lot of the decisions favour a certain 6 clubs in the Premier League. Now, if you're watching this and you're a Chelsea fan, a Man U fan, whatever, this isn't targeted at you. This isn't targeted at the fan base. It's barely even targeted at your clubs. It's targeted simply at the organisation of the Premier League and the PGMOL in this instance with the VAR, because it does feel majority of decisions go in favour of those 6 clubs. Like I said, it's just a feeling, and it's very difficult now because, like, it's just a theory. But when you see what happened at Stamford Bridge, I would argue you've now got evidence. Now, unfortunately, the one thing that sort of bucks that trend is the Newcastle goal, because that was against Crystal Palace. So there's no favouritism going on there per se. They're quite level teams in terms of where they are in the Premier League today. But going forward, before I get on to that actually, I've seen a lot of people say, well, do we get the point? They can't do that. The Premier League can't then hand out points after games, because the West Ham one is a very rare instance where the goal, and it was a deciding goal, it would have changed the outcome of the game, happened in the 92nd minute. And like I said, you can assume West Ham would have went on to get a point from that game, and I think it's a fair assumption. Chance of one of us scoring again, minimal. Turn into a percentage, less than 1% probably. However, St James's Park, funnily enough, provides the proof as to why you can't then start changing results once the game's finished, regardless of whether VAR has made an error or not. Because that goal that was scored but not given was in the 51st minute. It went on to finish 0-0, but you can't then just say, well, Newcastle would have went on to win the game. Well, you don't know that. The whole game was, from the 51st minute onwards, had it been 1-0 Newcastle, it would be completely different. Newcastle might have went on to win 2-0. But Palace could have equalised. Palace could have went on to win the game. Everything from the moment a goal is awarded, everything post-goal is completely different to what you have just witnessed. So unfortunately, it will never be as simple as, well, you've got to award that team a point retrospectively. It just cannot happen. It's completely unfair, full stop, as far as I'm concerned. But what can we do? Because something needs done. VAR was brought in to level the playing field, to remove human error. It feels like we've got more human error, but now we're not talking about what the referee's done during the game. We're talking about what the referees have done in a room watching monitors, and that's wrong. VAR should never be the story. There's that old saying, isn't there? A referee's had a good game when you don't speak about him after the match. When you don't notice the referee, that means he's had a good game. Well, that should be the same with VAR. We should know VAR is good and working if we're not discussing it after the game. Obviously, we'd have to mention it if it's made the right call. But if it makes the right call, you move on pretty quick, don't you? You say, yeah, it was offside, and you move on. How often do you see a goal that's been ruled out from VAR because of a clear, and I say clear offside, not Aston Villa against Man City, because that was dodgy, weren't it? That was worse than ours. At least our one was it a foul? Was it not a foul? Offside's black and white. Now, I know what the problem is. He's blowing his whistle prior to Coutinho taking the shot. But that linesman should never be putting his flag up at that point. How often do we see the game continuing for 30 seconds and then the linesman puts his flag up and you get reminded this is what they've got to do. They've got to let play continue. I mean, Coutinho was literally weaving his way through players to have a shot, and the linesman stuck his flag up. Anyway, that was when you see a clear and obvious offside and the goal's ruled out. You don't discuss it after the game, because you look and go, yeah, right. There's no debate to be had. It was offside. You move on. And at the minute, we don't have that with VAR. We're discussing it over and over again because the decisions, well, they're not black and white, but I'll tell you what they are. Controversial at best, corruption at worst. Now, going forward, what is the answer? I don't know, but something needs to change because it's not working. I mean, you could argue it is working. This is possibly what it was set up for, to protect the greedy six in the Premier League, so possibly it is working. But as a football fan, it's just not doing what it's supposed to do, which is get rid of human error, make it a level playing field. What is the answer? I would like to see the colleague part removed. I think, for me, a big part, and now this isn't the right answer, this is an opinion. Like I said, get your opinions below. But for me, I think a big part of the problem is the fact that they've got colleagues disagreeing with one another initially. One's got the benefit of replay, so the referee on the pitch makes a call in live time. The guy with the monitors watching numerous replays essentially tells him he's wrong. I think that puts a lot of pressure on the referee on the pitch. Now, the referee on the pitch has to be strong mentally. He has to go over to that monitor and stick with what he's done and carry on with the game, just like Michael Oliver did. But like I said, I do feel like it's easier for Michael Oliver, because if they stick with their decision, they're calling someone out. I would almost like to see a separate group of people in charge of VAR that aren't the colleagues of the referees may be a completely different group altogether. So you've got the PGMOL in charge. That's the refereeing body. Perhaps we need a completely different group altogether in charge of VAR. And like I said, they're not colleagues. Because arguably you need slightly different qualifications for VAR to referee. For example, as a referee, you need to be fit. In the VAR room, you don't need to be fit. You just need a complete understanding of the rules. And that's it, pretty much. You need to know the rules. Now, I've seen a lot of calls for ex-pros to be involved with VAR. And I've never been keen on it per se because, well, I do think you could argue there needs to be an element of understanding how to play the game or how the game's played when it comes to some things you watch on VAR. You do feel like it should go or whatever. But all you have to do, prime example is Chelsea-West Ham. Graham Souness, TalkSport, said the goal should have been ruled out. He agrees with the refereeing decision because of what Jared Bowen's doing with his right foot. Not the left foot that's trailing and caught Mendy, but the right foot. Graham Souness believes he's showing the studs to Mendy, and that's why it's ruled out. But the reason I bring this up, because even if you involve ex-pros, there's still going to be disagreements. There's still going to be people that you may think are qualified. And Graham Souness, a fantastic player, brilliant footballing CV, he would suggest that goal is overturned. So what is the answer? I am not 100% sure, in all honesty. But I'm interested to read your comments below. One thing I do think about VAR, though, it takes too long. The time that they take to look over the replays is far too long. You need to watch it that many times. Clearly, it's not a clear and obvious error. You're probably now convincing yourself. And the last thing I'm going to say about the referee in particular on Saturday, because I forgot to say it earlier, I've got some notes written down. The thing that annoys me the most is the lack of consistency. And I don't even mean with the application of VR. We know all about that. But in the game, in the second half, there was an instant where Zuma let the ball bounce. Broja came in behind him. Fabianski put his hands on the ball. Broja clattered into him. And Fabianski spilled the ball. Now, we end up coming away with it. I say cleared it. We didn't even clear it. We just played out from the back. But the referee just played on. Now, when you're watching back, the referee doesn't wave advantage. He doesn't even indicate there's been a foul. Just play on. And there's so you have to assume the referee's basically seen what you would call a coming together between the attacker and the goalkeeper. All is fair. Continue. Yet there's minimal contact between Jared Bowen and Mendy. Yet he deems that enough for a free kick. But yet Broja clattering into Fabianski isn't. And it's just inconsistent. And that's what frustrates me the most. If the referee had given a free kick for Fabianski, I still don't think there's enough contact, however. But at least then he could argue to some extent, oh no, any physical contact on the goalkeeper I deem is a foul. Perhaps we don't agree with it, but at least you could then say at least he's consistent, just incorrectly consistent. He's not even that, he's inconsistent. And who's in favour? The top six club. And that is what annoys me more than anything. West Ham were robbed. PGMOL have confirmed that. But what difference does it make? Naffle at the end of the day. West Ham minus 1 point in the Premier League compared to what it should be. VAR, it's been a shambles of a weekend for it, but something must change. Get involved in the comments below, but if you've enjoyed this video, apologies for getting ranty, but I just thought, you know what, I'm going to have a chat with you today. Get all my thoughts about VAR out there and see what you guys are thinking. But do drop a like on it, subscribe to New Ham's chat, and I'll be back tomorrow. We've got our first Europa Conference League group stage match preview. Bit of a long title, that one, isn't it? Anyway, catch you tomorrow.